Hello, this is Lori with Ellen's Crafty Creations, and I am here to share a tutorial with you guys as soon as I get all of my stuff together. It's for this adorable 8 by 6 inch mini album, and it's a really easy tutorial. It's super fast to put this album together. It makes a great gift, and it does hold full 4 by 6 photos. What are those photo mats for? I don't know. Anyway, so it is 8 pages long, so there's the inside. I do have kind of a reveal type video on my channel for this album if you want to see what it all looks like on the inside. And I'm going to kind of put this to the side and keep it open so I know what goes on what page next. So, let's see, there's that. Let's see. So I've already created all but one of my base pages, so that's what I'll be pulling from over here to the side. And I left one not done so I can share with you guys. And let me give you some measurements. For your chipboard, you're going to need 2 pieces at 8 inches by 6 inches, 1 piece at 8 inch by 2 1/4 inch for your spine. Lately, I've been using the Stack the Deck binding system, and I don't have an example to show you because I haven't made mine for this album just yet. So maybe we'll do that on camera. We'll see how much time we have after we finish putting the album together so I can kind of show you guys. If you're confused by the hidden hinge binding system, the Stack the Deck binding system is super easy. It's tons easier than the hidden hinge. So maybe I'll do that on camera. So let's start with our base pages. You're going to need 8 pages cut at 5.5 inches by 7.5 inches with no scoring. And then 8 pages cut at 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. You're going to score on the 8.5 inch side at 1/2 inch on each end. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and fold all my score lines and burnish. And as always, I'm just going to put glue here and add it to this base page here to make my pocket page that will attach to my hinges. If you are new to mini album making, this would also be a great album to start with. It is a lot of pages, but you'll find that they're really simple. Of course, I'm using my most favorite glue in the world, my Art Glitter Glue. I don't know why it's called Art Glitter Glue, but I love it because nobody that I know uses it for glitter. Okay, got that glued down. Alright, so on the first page, if you saw the walkthrough of this album, you'll notice that most of the pages had pull-out photo mats. So here are the booklets. I have cut, I think, 6 booklets. So, but in the album, it included some cards that were included in the Craftology box that were a different size. So I'm going to give you the option. You can either use just these cards, which are 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 by 8 1/2, and you score on the 8 1/2 inch side at 4 1/4. So I don't have a 4 by 6 photo. Yeah, I do. So your 4 by 6 photos will fit perfectly on here with a little border, okay? And on the inside as well. So, and you can do portrait or landscape. So you can do these throughout the album, or I will also give your measurements if you want to do some larger ones like what I did here when I used this card here. I'll give you the measurements of this card. So we'll do that as we go along. So on the first page, all I did was one of these booklets. So it's 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. Again, score on the 8 1/2 inch side at 4 1/4 and fold in half, and it'll just stick right in here on the side to make your flap. Super simple. Okay, now turn this page over, and on here we're going to do the 2 smaller 4 by 4 flaps. So you'll cut 2 flaps at 4 1/4 by 4 3/4. Score on the 4 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch and fold on your score line and burnish. And then I'm going to take this insert out. We're going to add our glue right here on the inside. And then I'm just going to stick it on the inside of the pocket page, face up, right up to that score line, and I'm not going to go over it, and stick it down. And there's my first 4 by 4 flap. Okay, and it folds out that way. I'm going to take the other 4 by 4 flap and add glue, just like I did to the previous one on the inside. And I'm going to stick it facing glue side up right inside the pocket on the bottom right hand side. And there we go. So we have our 2 flaps. And I didn't use magnets to hold these down. If you want to, of course you can, but mine stay pretty flat without it. So there is page 1, okay? Let's set that to the side. I'm going to put this photo mat back in here that I took out so I remember that's where it came from. And page 2 is a pocket. So which you're going to cut one pocket at 3 1/2 inches by 6 1/2 inches. Yes, I think it's this one. Yeah. Whoops. Well, I am just throwing things all over the place. So this is 3 1/2 by 6 1/2. Score on the 3 1/2 inch side at 1/2 inch, and then on the 6 1/2 inch side at 1/2 inch on each end. Miter your corners here and fold on your score lines and burnish. And just going to check it for a fit, and it will fit. I did do my measurements correctly, and I'm going to add my glue and stick it down. Just line it up with the bottom of the page on all 3 sides. Okay, and that's it, just a pocket. So flip it over, and on the other side you're going to have your designer paper here and another one of these booklets that are cut at 6 1/4 by 8 1/2 and scored in the middle, and it's just going to fit on the inside right here. And that's it for page 2. Super simple, right? So for page 3, we're going to do a belly band here, and this one is cut at 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. Score on the 8 1/2 inch side at 1/2 inch on each end. Fold on your score lines and burnish. And let's go ahead and add it. And I put mine kind of about a half an inch from the end of the right hand side. So I have a little gap here on this side, and stick it down. Okay, and there we go. Now turn this one over, and this is the one that I left plain, and I just put the stickers at the bottom here, and I made a little stopper. So we're going to put this one aside. And what are we on? Page 4. Again, this one has just one of these simple pull-outs on the side. So again, 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. Score in the middle and tuck it in, and that's it. Super easy. Turn it over. Now on this side, this is where I actually added a flap instead of doing the insert. So I made this flap at 4 3/4 by 6 1/4, and I scored on the 4 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch. I'm going to fold on my score line and burnish. I'm going to put my glue on the inside of the flap. And I'm just going to tuck it in and get it centered on the page as much as I can and stick it down. And that's it. Put that page aside. Let's grab the next base page. This page has a belly band. It's a small one. This one measures, let me see, belly band 2 inches by 6 1/2 inches. Score on the 6 1/2 inch side at 1/2 inch on each end. Fold on your score lines and burnish. And then add it just directly in the middle of the page. Or you could off-center it if you want. Do it mostly at the top or mostly at the bottom, whichever you prefer. I like mine kind of in the middle. Doesn't have to be perfect. But as centered as my eyes can get it, that's what I like to do. Okay. That's it for this page. So turn it over. On this side, we're going to do our 4, did I cut those out now that I'm thinking of it? I didn't, but I can do that quickly. So you're going to cut one at 4 1/4. Just going to use these that I've already scored by 4 1/4. Okay. And then I'm going to cut 2 more, right? Yeah, at 4 1/4 by 4 3/4, which is what that is. And then you're going to score on the 4 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch. So now that I have those two, I'm going to take my base 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, and then I'm going to take one of my 4 3/4 by 4 1/4 photo mats. I'm going to fold, well actually you're going to score on the 4 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch. I'm going to fold on my score line and burnish. And what did I do? I'm going to add it to the bottom of this flap here. Okay. So it's going to open down this way. So I added it directly onto this piece. So fold that one up, take your next piece that you scored at 1/2 inch, fold on your score line and burnish, and you're going to add it to the top of this piece. Again, I'm going to add my glue on the outside of the flap. and I'm just going to add it right there at that top and just lining it up with the other flaps. This will give me like an accordion fold, so it'll fold out this way. And then you'll be able to fold it up. So on my book here, I can't add it to this base page here. I added it right in the middle. I can't add it until I add my paper. So here's what I did here. Cut your seam binding longer than I did, or your ribbon, because I didn't cut it very long. So I added my pattern paper here, and then I glued down this piece directly on top of that. But before I did that, I added the seam binding on the back. Okay, and this is all that I had left of this navy seam binding at the time, so it's what I used. And it's pretty short, so it's hard to tie the bow, and it would look cuter if it were longer, but that's that. So put that page aside. And the next page has a large pull out. So for this page, you could make this size pull out if you prefer, the 6 1/4 by 8 1/2, and score it in half, which is probably what I'm going to use for this album since it's already made. Or you could cut a larger pull out. This card was 10 inches by 7 inches. And you score on the 10-inch side at 5 inches and fold it in half, and that'll give you a larger flap if you choose to do that. Okay, so on the back of this page I have a pocket. You're going to cut this pocket to 4 inches by 6 1/2 inches, score on the 4-inch side at 1/2 inch, and then on the 6 1/2 inch side at 1/2 inch on each end. Miter your corners, and then fold on your score lines and burnish. And then you just add it to the bottom of your page. And that's it for that page. You can set that one aside and grab your next base page. This one has another larger card in it, and it was this one that I had done, and it's again the same as the other one, 10 inches by 7, and you score on the 10-inch side at 5 inches. Or you could use these 6 1/4 by 8 1/2 flaps, which is what I'm going to use for this album, since this is the second one I'm making. And flip it over. On the back of this one, there's nothing. It's just, I've just put pattern paper. So that's it for that page. On the final page, there's another pocket on this side. It's cut the same as the other pocket, 4 inches by 6 1/2 inches. So I'm going to fold on my score lines and burnish. You're going to score on the 4-inch side at 1/2 inch, and then on the 6-inch side at 1/2 inch on each end again. And on the other side, there is just another flap. So on this side, I had added it here. So that's, again, that's 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. Are you tired of hearing me say that yet? So that's it for all of our pages. So see, super simple album, right? On the inside covers, so here I did a belly band and I cut it at 3 1/4 inches by something. Inside cover 9, 3 1/4 inches by 9. Score on the 9-inch side at 1/2 inch on each end, and you'll just add that to your front cover here. Okay, and of course I kind of put mine over to the left on this one, and then on the back cover I did a pocket, and you'll cut that. That's what this one is. You'll cut it at 4 1/2 inches by 9 inches and score on the 4 1/2 inch side at 1/2 inch and on the 9-inch side at 1/2 inch on each end. And then that's your pocket. What else did I do? The measurements for these pull-out photo mats, if you wanted to include one on every page, you can. I did not. They are 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 inches. What else can I give y'all? I did these other photo mats that I had in here that were a little bit larger. I did a cut apart and then added some design. 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 for these photo mats. This one's a little smaller because I usually just use scraps, and then I use whatever I have left after I've cut out, you know, all of my pages. And then these are 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 photo mats. You can use those. And I think that's all that I have for you guys. Just giving it a quick look-see, making sure I didn't miss something. And that's it. I will give you the measurements for this thing is 10 1/2 by 4 1/4. And then I scored on the 10 1/2 inch side at 4 1/4 and just folded it over. So you can mount a little cut apart here and then 2 photos here, or add another cut apart there if you want. And that is all I have, I think. So there you go, guys. There is my tutorial for the that's it. I forgot. I was going to do the stack the pages binding, which I don't have a I wonder if I can do that real quick. Let's see. My computer there we go. My computer froze on me for a second. Maybe I can just figure it out while I'm on camera with you guys. So I had a piece of paper cut. Here we go. I'm starting out with a piece of paper. Should be 7 1/2 inches. And I'll show you how to do this real quick if you're not familiar with this binding system. So 3/4, quarter. So 1 3/4 inches is going to be my first cut. And we'll score that in a second. And then I believe you add 1/2 inch to each one after that. So it'll be 2 1/4. Right? So 3/4, then quarter, quarter, quarter. Yes. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud. So then 2, 1 3/4, 2 1/4. Sorry, it's kind of off guard trying to give these measurements to you guys. I didn't write them down ahead of time. So bear with me just a moment. then 2 3/4, and then 3 1/4. And now I get to score it and see if I did it right, right? So this has, the pages have 1/4" gussets. So here's my scoring tool. So what I've done here is I've cut 4 pieces because we have 8 pages, right? And they're going to stack on top of each other. So they get progressively larger by a 1/2 inch. So this one is 1 3/4. The next one, 1 3/4 by 7 1/2. Let me clarify that. The next one is 2 1/4 by 7 1/2. Then we have 2 3/4 by 7 1/2. And then 3 1/4 by 7 1/2. And then what I do is I score at 3/4 inch. Can you see? There you go. 3/4 inch. And then I flip it and then score at 3/4 inch. Okay. So you can see where I have that 1/4 inch gusset in there and then 2 flaps on the sides. So I'm going to do the same with all 4 pieces. I'm going to score at 3/4 inch on each side. Now if you want to do the hidden hinge binding system, you absolutely can. I've just been experimenting with the Stack the Deck lately, and I've liked it, it's really surprised me because I really thought I wasn't going to like it. Okay, so let me also get okay, hold on, let me stand up and get something real quick. Okay, I'm knocking all my stuff over. This is a Tyvek envelope, and when I do the Stack the Deck binding system, I reinforce it with Tyvek because the hidden hinge system has you know, double that paper on the hinges. Well, the Stack the Deck doesn't have that, so I like that extra something. Just gives me peace of mind that my album's going to stay together. So let's see. I'm going to just cut this in half just to make it easier to work with. So for my Tyvek, if you don't know what Tyvek is, it's a tear-resistant material. I buy, you know, just a package at a time. This is black Tyvek. You really don't have to have black. You can use white because it's not going to show, okay? So what I've done here is I've just taken a piece of Tyvek and I cut it at 7, it's like 7 7/8, or maybe the next mark over, I'm not sure what that is. Just shy of 7 1/2 for my Tyvek. So then I'm going to reinforce all of these pieces with Tyvek. So I'm going to cut it to like 7 7/8. No, that's not right, is it? Because it should be 7 1/2. I did that wrong. So it should actually be 7 3/8. I cut it just slightly smaller than the cardstock so that it's easier to mount it to the top. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a minute because I know it really doesn't make any sense right now. So I'm going to cut this to 3 1/8. I'm going to cut this one to 2 5/8. The next one's going to be 2 1/8. It doesn't have to be totally like 100% accurate either. This one's going to be 1 5/8. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is my first piece that I scored, and I'm just going to flip it over to the back where the bumpy side of the score lines are, and I'm going to add this Tyvek over to the top of it. Okay, it's just going to reinforce my hinges so that when I add my pattern paper and the pages turn over time, since there's only one layer of cardstock turning, it's just going to reinforce those hinges. So I'm just going to lay it over the top. And this does get a little messy sometimes. Just like that. So can you tell there's just a tiny little border all the way around? Just made it easier for me to add the Tyvek. And then I just allow that to dry, okay? And then I'm going to do the same to all the other pieces. And I have gotten to where with this binding system, I do actually glue it to my spine. I don't use score tape. I just use the art glitter glue and that's it. And they've been holding together really well. I'm really pleased with it. Okay, 2 more to go. Again, I'm doing it on the bumpy side of these pieces. These 4 pieces will give us the 8 pages we're looking for here in this album with 1/4 inch gussets. And this is my last piece. So these are 3/4 inch hinges. If you want to do 1/2 inch hinges, you can do that as well. But these are 3/4 of an inch hinges, which is what Laura Dennison's, person who created the stack to deck binding system, that was her original design, is to have 3/4 inch hinges. So we have our Tyvek applied to all of them. I'm going to take the first one I started with. Now some people say don't fold them up to adhere them together all flat because they think it's easier. I don't think it's easier. So what I do is, where's my pencil? Oh, fell down. So here's the first piece that's going to adhere to the second piece. What I like to do is measure in between, see those lines? So I need 1/4 of an inch gap, right? There's 1/4 of an inch space here. I'm going to adhere that to the middle of this. To determine where the middle is, I lay my ruler down and mark between these two score lines 1/4 of an inch. And I flip it over and do it on the other side too. So, tiny, tiny marks. Can you see that? That's where my 1/4 of an inch is going to go. In between these tiny marks. Alright, I'm going to do that on the other pieces as well. 1/4 of an inch from the score line. So see, 1/4 of an inch over from here, from this score line is right here, and 1/4 of an inch from this score line is right here, and that's where I'm going to place my pages. I'm going to do it one more time to here, and then I'll show you how I stack the deck. Okay, maybe you can see it a little better here. Again, just 1/4 of an inch over. So I'm going to take, I think I'm going to start with the smallest one first. So I'm going to fold on the score lines and burnish. So here we go. Here is my Tyvek enforced first 2-page hinge. So there we go. And I have this gusset right here. Okay, so what I'm talking about is I'm going to line this gusset right here up with the marks that I made on either end. Can you even see these? I know I'm working with black cardstock, so I apologize. So, see my marks right there? I'm going to line this up with this. That's where it's going to be glued down to. So, I'm going to take my art glitter glue. I don't worry about glue seeping or anything. I just let it seep all over the place. I don't really care. Okay? So, I'm just going to stack it on the top and line it up where I put my marks. Just going to kind of burnish it a little bit. Okay. See, I got glue seeping out all over the place there. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. It's going to dry clear. To me, it reinforces it. It doesn't really bother me. So I wish I would have folded those flaps up, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and fold the flaps up on the other ones too. I find it easier if the flaps are folded up. That's just me. Because if you don't, what I'm going to have to do is see this score line here. There's a score line right here because they're only 1/4 inch gussets, right? I'd have to line up those two score lines with the two marks that I made here. And to me, it's easier if the flaps are lifted up. Let's see if I can do that without ruining what I just glued down. Apparently not. Because look, I just made a mess and it came off. But that's my fault for being stupid. So, let's glue it down again. Sorry about that. You can also do it to where when you measure, you should have a 1/4 of an inch gap right there, and I do. So is this clear as mud, guys? So I'm being confusing. Okay, now that's glued down. I'm going to go ahead and glue it down. Well, I can't because I didn't do my other score line. So let's let that dry for a second. Now I already have these folded up. I'm going to go ahead and fold these up since I made that mistake the last time. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stack this one on top of that one to give that other one a few minutes to dry. You can also use, I like using art glitter glue. You can also use, I like using this Scotch Quick Dry glue as well. Either or. So again, I'm just lining this up with the marks that I made to make sure that I have 1/4 inch gussets. Okay, there we are. And now let me see if I can actually get this one right this time. Without messing it up. That's still not dry, so I'm not going to glue it down yet because I don't want to mess it up. But anyway, this one's going to stack right in here where my other marks are. And then there are my 8 pages. Okay? In my binding system. So when you turn it over, this whole thing right here is going to glue to your spine. And I do already have my base made, and it's just going to glue right there, right in the middle. So that wasn't a great tutorial on the stack the deck binding system, so I apologize for that, because you do have to kind of wait for the glue to dry, which is hard to do when you're trying to be quick and do a quick tutorial. So I'm going to let this dry before I glue my last 2 pages in here, but then it just glues directly down. So just note, when you do this binding system with this book, you're going to have to put, you know, a cover. With a hidden hinge, I usually just put the hidden hinge here and then cover the sides. But since this doesn't cover all of those gussets and everything, you have to put an extra piece of paper on the bottom before you stick your binding system down. So just be aware of that. So that was different, so sorry about that. I am going to include all the measurements that I just gave you for the binding system in the comments down below, and if you want to do hidden hinge, you can do that as well. And that's all I have for you guys on this tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you make the book, and thanks for watching. Bye!